The Great Wall of China is not a monolithic structure created in a single moment, but rather a grand complex that accumulated over centuries and combined numerous fortifications built during different historical eras. Although its history is often associated with Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first mentions of defensive walls in China date back to the 9th century BCE. These were separate, scattered fortifications, built by various kingdoms during the Warring States period, 475 to 221 BCE, for defense against both each other and against raids by nomadic tribes from the north. These early structures were predominantly made of rammed earth. An understanding of this prehistory is crucial because it explains why different sources point to different starting dates for the construction. The issue is not one of contradiction, but of evolution. Initially, they were chaotic, scattered mounds, and then they were systematized and unified into a single line of defense. This transformation is what made the project truly great. The historical complex of the wall, built over millennia, is estimated by some to have a total length of 40,074 kilometers, while its most famous continuous section, built during the Ming Dynasty, has a length of 8,851.8 kilometers. This difference in scale clearly demonstrates that the Great Wall is not just a monument, but a living architectural chronicle that has absorbed the efforts of many generations. The culmination of the scattered construction was the era of the first emperor of a unified China, Qin Shi Huang, 259 to 210 BCE, who is often called the father of the Great Wall. His main role was not to build the wall from scratch, but to order the unification of the existing fortifications along the northern border into a single, defensive system. The primary goal was to secure the young empire from constant threats posed by nomadic tribes, particularly the Xiongnu. This project became one of the most ambitious building projects ever undertaken by any civilization. The scale of the project was impressive. Around 1 million people were involved in its construction, which accounted for approximately 1/5 of the country's total population at the time. At the cost of an extraordinary mobilization of human resources, the emperor demonstrated the strength and cohesion of his new empire. However, it should be noted that most sections built during the Qin dynasty were constructed with rammed earth and stone, which explains their poor state of preservation today. This suggests that the grandeur of his project lay not so much in its architectural perfection as in the unprecedented political will and ability to organize such a vast workforce to achieve a single goal. The construction method of the Great Wall was not only monumental, but also extremely pragmatic and adaptive, considering China's diverse landscapes. The primary building material used for most of its history was rammed earth. It filled the space between the outer walls, which were built of stone or brick. Where stone was unavailable, for example in the Gobi Desert, builders showed ingenuity by using layers of sand, gravel, as well as branches and reeds to create the base. Special attention should be paid to the mortar used to bond the stone blocks. A unique binding agent was a sticky rice porridge mixed with slaked lime. This mixture provided incredible strength and durability. Brick as a primary material only began to be actively used during the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644. This is why the sections of the wall that were restored and expanded during this era are the best preserved and have such a magnificent appearance today. This is a wonderful example of how engineering thought adapted to local conditions, using available materials to solve complex problems. The grandeur of the Great Wall project was achieved at an incredible cost of human life and suffering. Construction was a true forced labor, involving soldiers, peasants, and convicted criminals. Work was carried out in extremely harsh conditions, leading to high mortality rates. These tragic circumstances gave rise to the famous legend that the bodies of the deceased builders were entombed directly in the wall's foundation. earning it the grim reputation of being the longest cemetery in the world. However, modern historical research offers a more complex view of this story. Scholars believe that the tale of entombing bodies in the wall is more of a poetic expression or political propaganda. This narrative was actively spread in the official historical records of the Han Dynasty, which succeeded the Qin Dynasty and sought to legitimize its rule by portraying its predecessors as cruel and tyrannical. This interpretation shows how history can be a tool in a political struggle. Interestingly, some sources even claim that conscripts involved in the construction received a daily wage, which challenges the simple notion of the construction being solely forced labor. The Great Wall was much more than a simple barrier. It was a complex military and engineering system. Its parameters were optimized for defense. The average height was 6 to 7 meters, and the width at the top was 5 to 8 meters, which allowed 2 horse-drawn carts to pass each other. Key elements were the watchtowers, which, by some estimates, numbered up to 25,000. They were located at a distance of up to 200 meters from each other, ensuring visual contact between guards. Fire and smoke signals were used for communication, relayed from tower to tower to announce the approach of an enemy. In addition to defensive towers, fortified passes with gates were built in strategically important areas, such as mountain passes. While the main purpose of the wall was to protect the empire from nomadic tribes, new research adds new, unexpected functions. Some sections, including the so-called Genghis Khan's Wall, were too low for effective military defense. Researchers suggest that their location was ideal for controlling the movement of caravans and nomads, possibly for the purpose of collecting taxes and regulating trade. This multifaceted approach to construction transforms the wall from a passive barrier into a dynamic tool for border management and economic control. After the rule of the Ming Dynasty, when the need for the wall as a defensive fortress disappeared, it gradually began to fall into disrepair. Today, the Great Wall is threatened not only by natural factors, such as erosion and weather conditions, but also by human activity. Damage is caused by local residents stealing bricks for building houses, illegal mining less than 100 meters from the wall, and uncontrolled tourism. To protect this symbol of Chinese history, the Chinese government began large-scale restoration work in 1957. The most popular sections, such as Badaling and Mutianyu, have been restored. However, these efforts do not always receive approval. The use of concrete in some sections has drawn significant criticism, as it has violated the authenticity of the structure. This situation raises the complex question of balancing the preservation of historical heritage with its commercialization and accessibility for millions of tourists. Despite all the challenges, the Great Wall remains one of the greatest engineering achievements of humanity, symbolizing the resilience, unity, and national pride of the Chinese people. In 1987, it was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List, confirming its universal significance for the entire world. While Emperor Qin Shi Huang laid the foundations, the Great Wall was not completed during his reign. The Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE, made a significant contribution to its expansion and strengthening. Under the reign of Emperor Wu Di, who led campaigns against the Xiongnu tribes, the wall was significantly fortified. One of the main goals was to extend the fortifications westward to protect the vital Silk Road, which ensured the safety of merchants and fostered economic growth. During the Han era, the fortifications were primarily made of rammed clay, not brick, which became the main material later during the Ming Dynasty. A network of watchtowers and forts was built along the fortifications, serving as an early warning system. According to historical records, a beacon was placed every 5 li, approximately 2.5 kilometers, a tower every 10 li, a fort every 30 li, and a castle every 100 li. These fortifications not only protected the borders, but also facilitated the development of agricultural lands in northern and western China. It is traditionally believed that the Great Wall was a purely defensive structure, designed to protect the Chinese Empire from nomadic tribes. However, recent studies challenge this long-held view. For instance, the so-called Genghis Khan's Wall in the Mongolian steppes was found to be too low for effective military defense. Scholars suggest that its main purpose was to control the movement of people in caravans, as well as to collect taxes. Instead of stopping armies, it could have channeled people to specific narrow passes where they were inspected and controlled. Interestingly, there is even an alternative hypothesis that the Great Wall was not built by the Chinese. Proponents of this theory point out that on some sections, the loopholes face south, towards Chinese territory, rather than north, from where attacks were expected. While this assumption remains marginal, it clearly demonstrates that the history of the wall is much more complex than a simple story of defense. It was a multifunctional project with military, economic, and political purposes.